We will go ahead and get started. The first three questions will go to Joe Chats from On Tap Sportsnet, followed by Tim Hotza and Tim, you're going to have to tell me if I'm saying that wrong, from Men in Red 97. And the third one will be Alex Campbell from Shigo Sports. So, Joe, go ahead.
Thanks, E. Hey, Andrew. Joe Chats here in Chicago. Pleasure to meet you in this regard. Hope everything's been well.
Nice to meet you.
First few weeks. Oh, thank you. First few weeks with the squad. I'm curious, first impressions, how this has all been going, and the desire to return to Chicago. Obviously, some people don't want to come home. It can be terrifying, but to get that 3-year commitment as well, just curious how that's been and adjusting this last month.
Yeah, it's been amazing to come back to the club that I grew up playing for. It's something that I always envisioned happening, and thankfully this last off season it was able to come to fruition. So for me it's where I've always wanted to be, where I've always wanted to play. So I'm thankful for the club bringing me back, and hopefully I'm here for the rest of my career. That's my goal. And it's been great so far, meeting the guys, meeting the coaching staff, everyone involved with the club. It's been super welcoming, helping me out when I need it. And I think every day the team's working to get better and better, and get the club back to where it's been in the past. That's our goal. So hopefully we can achieve that in the future.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Next, we'll go with Tim.
All right, Andrew. So obviously you've got a long history with your organization. There was discussions of a first-time deal earlier in your career. That didn't end up happening. Looking back, what were those discussions like? How did it feel different this time around? And what made you want to kind of finally come full circle and back to Chicago?
Yeah, I think, in this profession, nothing's ever guaranteed. So, when I was growing up and I was coming up through the academy, obviously there was discussions, to stay, and, things happen. It didn't work out, but I always in my head was thinking, I want to eventually come back to Chicago. I want to be able to play for this club. And thankfully guys within the organization kept good relationships with me. Every time we played in Chicago, I would still say hello and have some chats with some of the guys throughout the club. And, I never felt like it wasn't my club. I always felt like, the fire was a part of me. And like I said, this off season, everything kind of came together where there was a great opportunity for me to come back. I was in a position where I wanted to come back. I wanted, the prime of my career to be with Chicago. I feel like, these upcoming years are going to be, probably the best level I'm going to be able to play at. And I wanted to be able to play for Chicago while doing that. So like I said, nothing's ever guaranteed in this business. I'm just happy that, eventually this got done and I was able to return to Chicago.
Thank you. Before we go to Alex, I will say the following two questions will go to Charles Boehm and followed by Vasilios Skamnias. So Alex, your line is open.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for taking the time to be with us today, and welcome back to Chicago. I guess aside from just the soccer stuff and being excited to rejoin your boyhood club, what are like the non-soccer factors? What are you most excited about? What are you most looking forward to about being back at home in Chicago?
Just being around my family. My girlfriend's family's here as well. Hopefully I'll have 50 plus people at every game, cheering me on and getting to experience what I do live. I was talking to my family this off season, and we were kind of counting the games that they've actually seen me play live, and it's at most maybe 1/3 of what I've played. So now for my friends and family to be able to watch me play live almost every single game, that's something that I've dreamed of. And just the familiarity of being at home, being at a club that I've known for so long, and it just feels it feels better to me. It feels I have a new drive and a new passion with this club to get it back to where it was. And I'm just looking forward to all the success hopefully we have on the field, but then just also the great memories I'm going to be able to experience with my friends and family being back home in Chicago.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Alex. Next, we'll go with Charles.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for speaking today. I know you've already talked about this, but when I know you're coming home, but there's so much different at the club, right? So many different faces, even the crest. How does it feel? Do you perceive a lot of that change, and how have you kind of processed that?
Yeah, I think the club has changed just like the league's changed from when I was growing up and even my first few years in the league. And I think Chicago is a club that's kind of like a sleeping giant almost. It has such a big market, so much potential. We have a great owner that is willing to do everything to get this club to the top. And yes, things have changed, but there's also guys within the club that are still here that when I was in the academy, getting opportunities to train with the first team. So it's nice to see those familiar faces still with the club. They know what this club's all about, and the new guys that they've brought in, their main goal is to take it back to the top. And everything that I've experienced so far, I've seen nothing but positive impacts within the club. And it's coming back home and seeing all this, it makes me very excited for the future of this club.
Just one more for me. It seems like you've always had value. Like you've had all these clubs that went out and got you, but maybe you're in this weird class of players whose value, specific kind of value, makes you more tradable somehow. And I just think that must have been infuriating on some level for you, and especially when you had to leave your hometown to get started. Yeah, I mean,
my dad always tells me, every time I've been traded or something happens, he's like, it's not a bad thing to be wanted, So I always look at it as a positive. Teams are willing to give up assets to bring you in. That's something that, to me, it gives me a lot of pride that, I'm good enough that teams want to do that. And, I'm grateful that Chicago was able to complete a trade to get me home. And, this is where I've always wanted to be. So, hopefully this is the last club I play for in MLS.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Vasilios Skamnias from Soccer Subs Podcast.
How's it going, Andrew? Thank you for the time. And just a quick question without harping back too much on the beginnings and stuff, but what's a message that you'd like to give to the fans now that you're here, like you said, you're committed long term, and hopefully it's the last team of your career. And just as a second parter, what's it like playing with Tom Barlow again? I know you guys spent a pretty successful year in the Red Bulls together. So is it nice to see a familiar face as well?
Yeah, I've known Tom for a long time. I played against him when I was at Indiana and he was at Wisconsin. Same with Chris, known him for a long time. So obviously Tom and I played together in New York. It's great to be back teammates with him. He's such a good guy, and I'm looking forward to playing together again and hopefully helping him score a few goals this year. And then to answer your other question, one of the, I think, misconceptions of what happened years ago was, I had no intention of playing for the Fire. That was never the case. I've always wanted to play for the Fire. I never wanted to play for any other club. So like I said before, in this profession, nothing is guaranteed. And unfortunately, years ago, it didn't work out, and it was something I was very, very sad about. And every game I could watch of the Fire, I'd always watch them. I'd always keep tabs on them. For me, I just want the fans to know that I've always felt this was my club. I've never wanted to leave, and I'm so happy that I'm back here, and I hope that I can repay the club for bringing me back with my performances on the field.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, I see your hand is still up. Do you have another question?
I do. Thanks, E. I feel like we owe Andrew an on-pitch question. And I'm curious, so if you want to keep the Chicago stuff, Chicago Fire legend Frank Klopas is the coach, but how do you feel about the role he's been explaining to you about having, pitching to you for the upcoming season? And how do you feel initially working with that new back line teammates? You got Shihos and Wyatt, and Carlos injured, and the guys coming in.
Yeah, I don't know if Frank will want me to give too much information on what my role is throughout the season, but yeah, I've had a few talks with him. I can say that I'm super excited about the role that he wants me to play within the club, both on the field and off the field. I think it's something that really fits who I am as a player, and hopefully I can show that this year on the field. And the back line, it's obviously a new back line to me, and I'm still trying to get to know a lot of the players, but what I've seen so far is really good. I'm super excited to play with Rafa, to play with Wyatt, to play with Maudi, who I grew up playing with in the academy. Haven't had the chance just yet to play with Carlos, but I've played against him multiple times, and he's just a beast of a center back. So I think we have a really good back line going into the season, and hopefully we can be rock solid back there.